what makes Purim such a happy day is that what makes comedy comedy? What makes comedy comedy is that the person's going in one direction and then they go in a different direction. And so Purim, if you just read the story, if you've never read the story before, it does not look good. And then everything turns around, right? And so, and when everything turns around, you say, ah, ha, ha, I thought it was all gonna be bad. And now it's really turning into something that's good. And so Purim is sort of like, we have troubles in our lives, and especially I want to focus on Corona. And there's nothing worse than Corona. There cannot be any blessing in Corona. And I want to point out three things. Of course, everything that's happened, we want to wish a refuah shlema to all the people that, sick and people have passed away. And at the same time, I want to mention three things which are uniquely special to Corona. And number one is eyes. People wear masks. So when you look at a person, how do you recognize them? By their eyes. And, when a person smiles, where's the smile? The smile is not in your mouth, right? Where's the smile? It's in your eyes. It's an amazing thing. And so today, when we have to look at people, you have to really look in their eyes. And when you look at someone in their eyes, it's very intimate. It's a very special thing to have a chance to look into someone's eyes. There you go. Can you imagine? Yeah, I tell you, it's sad but true. People that have been married for a long time, and they don't look into each other's eyes. They look at each other, but they don't look into each other's eyes. It's a very special thing, look into each other's eyes. And and here we get into Purim Torah. What's Hadassah's real name? What's Esther's real name? Hadassah.
Awesome.
Hadassah. Well, that's interesting, right? Because what do we know about on Sukkot? We have the 4 species, right? And we know that each one of them corresponds to a different part of the body. The lulav corresponds to the spine, and the etrog corresponds to the heart, and the aravot correspond to the lips. And what does the hadass correspond to? The eyes. And what do we know about the hadass? In order for a hadass to be kosher, how many leaves does it have to have? It has to have 3. 3 leaves coming out from the same point. So it's 3 eyes. So in order to see depth perception, what do you need? You need the interplay of 2 eyes. So everyone heard of a third eye? Well, a third eye. So what does God say? God says you all have to have a third eye, right? Where's our third eye? And God says, that's right. You should put it. So I understand. I already have 2 eyes. What do I need a third eye for? So, and you should know that in ancient Sanskrit, the little dot they put over here, the word for that in ancient Sanskrit is tifla, what sounds a lot like tefillin. So what we're doing when we put on tefillin in the morning, we're putting on our third eye, which means I can look at the world from my perspective. I can look at the world from God's perspective. And that's a much deeper perspective. So first and foremost, Esther, who is Hadassah, she is the one she has the Hadass eyes. She can see deeper on what's going over here. And it's an amazing thing. The whole story is amazing, how she understood the political intrigue, how she could turn it around for the Jewish people. So that was the first thing I wanted to say, is that now is a chance with Corona, God willing, it should be behind us, to look into people's eyes. And we should be like Hadassah, who had God's eyes. She had the third eye, just like the Hadassah's 3 eyes, and to look at people in a much deeper way. And on Purim, there's some people that are revealed, but then there's some people that are hidden. And imagine you're walking down the street, and you're singing a tune, an Israeli tune, a Jewish tune, and suddenly someone standing next to you says, "Hey, I know that tune." You're singing along with you, right? So beforehand, you and him, you know what you wore to each other? You were hidden. But now, because you sang the tune, so now you find out this person's from Israel, is from Jewish, whatever. You see, you know what it is that Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shushana Birah. There was one person, he was willing to be Jewish. He was willing to be recognized as someone who is Jewish. You know, I'm walking down the street and I'm singing a Jewish song, and there's all these other people that are hidden. They're just hidden. And when I decide, you know, to sing my song, so suddenly I can find other Jews. And it's an amazing thing. And, you know, I don't know, well, we'll go on and we'll see something else, but this idea of having eyes to see people and see what's hidden inside people, you know, that's a beautiful thing. And I'll tell you a story. It's really, before we tell you a story, I'll sing an incredible Nigun, but this story is a great story. So I'll tell you, there was one rabbi, and his name was Abraham Yehoshua Apt. He was from the city of Apt, and his grandson was Rabbi Abraham Yehoshua Heschel, which a lot of people are familiar with. So his grandfather was the Apt Rebbe, and he wrote a parish on the Chumash. It's called the O of Yisrael, the lover of Israel, and on his grave site, his tomb, where we actually can still see the Tzion, it says the O of Yisrael. And this was really a person that loved every single Jew. And it tells the following story. No, this is a story about the Apter Rebbe. The Apter Rebbe was very dedicated to his community. He asked if Friday afternoon, before Shabbat, before Kabbalah Shabbat, there was a custom to say Shir Shirim. He said, I just would like to do that on my own. So, you know, of course, one chassid had to see the Rebbe, how he does it. So he went into the Beit Midrash, saw the Rebbe, prepared himself, put on his talis, and really, in a beautiful way, slow, devoted way, he started to sing Shir Shirim. And Shir Shirim, all kinds of Kabbalistic understandings of love between Jewish people and God. And he's in the middle of singing Shir Shirim before Shabbat. The door opens, and who's standing there? Chaim. And Chaim is standing there, and he says to Rebbe, give him a Mazal Tov. So even though everyone knew they weren't supposed to interrupt the Rebbe, so the Rebbe says, it's important, right? It's important, right? So he says, Mazal Tov. And then he notices that Chaim is still with his regular clothing and his boots. His boots are muddy. And also there's a very sharp smell coming from Chaim. He says, Chaim, he says, tell me, why Mazal Tov? He says, he says, there's been a birth. Mazal Tov. He says, but I tell you, Chaim, I know your family. I didn't know that anyone was pregnant. He says, no, it's not my family. It's my cow. My cow gave birth. Give him Mazal Tov. So he gave him Mazal Tov. So meanwhile, a chassid is up in the women's section. He's watching the whole thing, and he says, "Just a chutzpah. Maybe he's asking for a Mazel Tov because someone gave birth, but for the cow, fine, whatever." So after Shabbos is over, he goes up to the Rebbe and he says, "Rebbe, I know I shouldn't supposed to spy on you, but I did. I want to see how you say Shir Shirim, and I don't understand what a chutzpah Chaim has to come and ask a Mazel Tov, a Mazel Tov for the birth of a cow." So the Rebbe says, "Tell me." He says, "That's what you saw?" He says, "That's not what I saw." He said, I saw a chassid that finally had a reason to come and talk to his Rebbe. So, I'll tell you, Stephen, it's a very important thing you should know. And that is, when your wife talks to you, Susan knows about this. Wives talk to their husbands, and the husbands sort of like glaze out, right? They're there, but they're not there. It's a very important skill that you have to develop. So you should know, Stephen, that when your wife is talking to you, she's not really talking to you. I mean, she is talking to you. There are words coming out, and there's detail and there's content, but that's really not what's going on. You know what's really going on?
Tell me.
She just wants to be connected. She just wants to be connected. And that's her way to be connected. So, the question is really, what do you see? And that's a big question. When you read the Megillah, what do you see? And the wonderful thing about the Megillah is that God's name is not mentioned because, you know what? You're standing at Kriyat Yamsuf. You're standing at the splitting of the Red Sea. You see God? Big deal. So what? But you know what? If it's the Game of Thrones and political intrigue, and you look at that and you say, I see God, that's an amazing thing, And that's why the Rambam says that in the future, there will be two books that will be read out loud. One is the Torah itself, the 5 books of Moses, and the other is the book of Esther, because those are the bookends of our tradition. God revealing God's self in the 5 books, and us revealing God. So the question is, what do you see? The second thing that Corona is, it's an incredible blessing with Corona. It's unbelievable.
There has to be some silver lining to all of this.
So I'll tell you what it is. So, okay. So I also work as a couples therapist, and I deal with a lot of couples that are been married at 20, 25 years, and they said, enough, it's enough, it's enough, it's enough. And let me explain what happens. You get married. When you get married, what happens is that you get 2 people that come together. They come 2 people and they find each other. So what is this like? So in the Bible, we have 2 types of water collection devices. One is called a bore. A bore is a cistern. It has a wide mouth. It collects rainwater. Okay, so in Israel, it collects water during the winter, and slowly it evaporates and you use it up until it's totally empty by the end of the summer. No, tell me, what does it say about Yosef? V'habor reik and bomayim, and the cistern was empty. There was no water. So since we know the story happened in Israel, we know the story of Yosef. Since it was a bore, right? It was a cistern. That story happened somewhere in October or November or something like that. Okay. But then there's a be'er. What's a be'er? A be'er is not, and when Yaakov meets Rachel at the be'er and the other places, a be'er is a well. What's a well? When Moshe met Tzipora, a well is a thin opening, a narrow opening, and you dig very deep down, and what do you find? You find water. The subterranean water comes up. Okay. So when 2 people get together, they fall in love. They've dug a well. They haven't dug a cistern. It's a well. It's a be'er. And what happens? Water comes up. Let me tell you what happens after 25 years, 20 years, 25 years. It can happen sooner, happen later. You know what happens? The water dries up. Oy vey. The water dries up. It is not so good. So if the water dries up, what can you do? So I got to go marry someone else. I got to dig a new well. But you know what? You know what happens in a well? That if you dig deeper, you know what you're going to find? New water. If you dig deeper in the well, you find new water. And that's what's so special about a well. What's so special about this Corona is that people have time, a tremendous amount of time, and they can say, Haborek and Bomayim, what can I tell you? There's no mortal, I have nothing, I don't know what to tell you. I've watched, reruns of MASH, Friends, CSI, till nauseum. I've done it. Or you can go deeper. Deeper, 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 deeper. People are waiting, let the malls open up. What are they going to do in the mall? They're going to buy a pair of socks? They're going to get a latte? So we have an opportunity to go deep, deep inside of ourselves and find things that we've never found before. The only issue is that, you know what? We live sort of like in a world where everything is plastic, everything's thrown away. So, but now we have a chance. We have a chance to go deeper. So one more nigun and then one more idea, and we'll close for tonight. Dee da 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 da, dee da 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 da, dee da 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 da. Dee da 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 da, dee da 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 da, dee da 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 da. Dee dee da 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 da, dee da 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 da, dee da 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 da. Dee da da da, dee da 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 da, dee 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 dee. Dee da ya na 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 na. Dee da na 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 na. Dee na 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 na. Dee 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 dee. Dee dee da ya da 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 da. Dee na 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 na. Dee na 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 na. Dee da da da. The third thing I want to say about Corona, and this is an incredible thing, and that is that usually if we need a vaccination, how long does it take to come up with a vaccination? Usually, it's about 8 years,
Yeah.
10 years, something like that, okay? But, and this is an incredible thing, if everyone comes together and if they throw enough money at it and we say we're not compromising, then we can knock it off in a year. Now imagine what we've proven to ourselves is that we can do that. There are terrible problems in the world. Do you know why these problems exist? Because we put up with it. We say it can take a year, it can take 2 years, take 8 years, whatever it is. But with Corona, there was absolutely no compromise. We have to get it done, and it has to get done quickly. So I give you an example, okay? Let's say I want to go over to Susan's house, and I say, I'll bring lunch with me. And I say, okay, I have these great place. They sell these incredible ham sandwiches. Oh my God, mamish, it's the best ham in the whole wide world. So that's it. Susan say you can't come in. Why? Because no compromise. There's simply no compromise. So now what happens is, what happens usually with things that we're not happy with, like traffic accidents? We compromise. There's not too many of them. It's not so terrible, but it is terrible. What? We can't come up with cars that are super safe. We can come up with cars that are super safe. We can do that. You know, everyone knows, you know, and people over here are old enough to remember this, is that when they came out with the law that you had to have seatbelts, ooh, wow, what you call it, the car companies, they fought against it. They fought against increased costs and whatever. It's not necessary. So what? If we said there's a law that you can only go 40 miles an hour, we wouldn't save lives. Of course we would. But what do? What do you think? I mean, what's the one mode of transportation that really has not changed that much since 1960? What is it? Airplanes. So you think they can't? They can, but you know what? In airplanes, you're not willing. You know what they're not willing to do? Compromise. They have safety redundancy and a safety redundancy, and this, that, and the other. You know, if you go up in a fighter plane and you're flying, you know, so you go super fast. Why is that? Well, you got people that are super trained, and each one has a parachute, and there's also, you know, all kinds of special things happening in technology. But since they're worried on regular planes, the regular plane has to go a lot slower, and there's not parachutes for everyone. So there's safety upon safety upon safety. No compromise on safety. There's no compromise on safety. But you see, a lot of times that's what we do. We don't know that cigarettes are bad for us, but we compromise. We say, oh, well, there's a lot of things. And a lot of times what we do is, as opposed to what we do with the vaccination, is we compromise. And you know, I'll tell you a very sad thing. People go to, they go to yeshiva. Can you imagine someone goes to yeshiva? Someone goes to a day school. They have a Torah class, and you ask them, how was the Torah class? And they say, eh. Sad, right?
Very much so.
We have such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tradition. So what do? We compromise. What can we do? We don't have enough money to pay teachers. So we get the teachers we get, and that's just what it is. And then we're surprised why people are watching, reruns of Seasons of Friends, and they're not studying Torah. If Torah was taught in a way that's so beautiful, and a lot of what's happening with Purim is a lot about not compromising. What does Mordechai say? Mordechai says, I will not bow down. He's not willing to compromise. He's not willing to compromise. And because he's not willing to compromise, the whole story happens. And a lot of people, were not happy with Mordechai. Even in our own tradition, they weren't happy with him. So what's happening with Purim, and Esther says, she also said, listen, what are you doing? It's not so nice. You're sitting with sackcloth. Let me send you clothing, change your clothing, and let's do it a different way. We'll do it through political intrigue, this, that, and the other. And, sure enough, if it's between a husband and wife, there should be compromise between parents and children. But, if it's between you and yourself, if it's between you and God, if it's between you and the world in terms of your ideals, we live in a world of moral relativism where everything is relative and compromise. How about standing up for something? How about standing up for something? How about being, I can't imagine, there's so many stories I can tell you. I'm standing in the middle of Chamonix in France, wearing my kippah in the French Alps, and suddenly someone comes up to me. It's another Jew. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. I'll tell you, I was standing on the street Friday afternoon. Two girls come by, and they mamish looked. Not only did they look Jewish, they looked like they were from somewhere in Judea and Samaria, Yehuda Shomron. I said the Shabbat Shalom. Anyway, they came for Shabbat. You see, when we're willing to stand up and show everyone we're Jewish, but not only that we're Jewish, that we're happy to be Jewish, we're proud to be Jewish. The Torah says, in Devarim it says, why are we in the diaspora? It says, because you didn't worship God with happiness. Simcha v'tov lev, not with happiness and a good heart. I'm going to tell you the saddest thing in the world. There is only one person in our entire Tanakh that described as being Sameach v'tov lev. Why were we sent into diaspora? Because we didn't worship God with simcha and a good heart. There's only one person in the entire Tanakh that's described as having he's happy and has a good heart. Sameach v'tov lev. You know who's that? Haman. Haman is the only person. The only person. So the author, of course, was a little bit of a bite. It's not only, Purim says, it's not only that I'm Jewish, is that I'm happy to be Jewish. I'm proud to be Jewish. It's the most amazing thing in the world. And that's Mordechai. That's Mordechai. No compromising. I don't want to compromise. And it's a very special energy when you don't compromise. You see it. I don't want to compromise on my simcha. And Stephen is walking down the street, or Jordan's walking down the street, and he sees some guys, walking down, and they're like, really, really happy. Well, I don't know. It might be scary. Sometimes we get scared when people are really, really happy. Sometimes we're scared to be really, really happy. Anyway, we'll just end. You know what the holiness of children is that you go to a wedding or you go somewhere and you want to dance, but you're not dancing, but suddenly a little kid comes up to you and you hold their hands and you know what? You're dancing. So I want to bless everyone as Purim comes, that we'll be happy like little kids are happy. We won't compromise. You know, kids don't compromise. They don't still realize they're not compromising. Just to be happy. To be really, really happy. Why? Is because I'm in love with my Judaism. I dedicate so much money. Don't you realize that Torah, halacha, it's all a voluntary. I decided that I wanted to be part of this. So if you decided, be happy. Be really happy. And how do you be happy? Is because you love it. You think you can force two couples that have been married 25 years to be happy together? But as soon as they love each other, and in order to love each other, sometimes you know what you need to do? You need to dig deeper, deeper into yourself, deeper into the relationship. You need to see things that you never saw before. You know, one of the sad things is that you're married for a long time and you say you know the other person, but the other person's an infinite soul that God put inside of this person. The person's infinite. It's not that you know the person. You just stop learning. Stop learning about the other person. I want to bless myself and everyone. We should continue learning about ourselves. We should continue learning about each other. We should continue learning about our tradition. Let's go for it. Let's go for the deepest. Purim says we can eradicate evil. Let's go for it. There's no more compromise. Let's really go for it. Let's really go for it. And you know what? I'll just end with this. There's a new law in America, and the law is that if you see someone walking down the street and you know that if you don't know the person, you're not allowed to say hello to that person. It's a new law. What can I tell you? But you know what happens is, Susan, her daughter calls her up and she says, Ima, Mom, I'm getting married. And Susan's so happy. She walks out of her house and she's breaking the law left, right, and center. Every person she sees, she says hello to. Why? Because she's happy. Because she's so happy. You know why we don't say hello to people? Because we're not happy enough. So I want to bless you that the energy of Purim will give you the strength and the happiness to say hello to each person. And when you say hello to them, because beforehand you were hidden, but now you'll reveal yourselves to each other. And who knows what you'll find. Good Purim to everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Good Purim.
Chag Sameach.